the family member think? And I wanted to compare the users and the shoppers. So for the shoppers, how were they going to identify who could give them home care? What were their evaluation criteria? What's their information journey? Where do they go to for information? What are the purchase steps, etc.? And then once you're on board, so we've got shoppers and users and family members. So once you're on board, what's your satisfaction with your provider? What additional services might you want? What's your appetite for using an app, for technology, self-managed versus provider-managed? So the first study in 2017, 4,000 respondents, we've now ratcheted up the response. So we've got 10,000 respondents per survey. So we can cut and dice the data by geography, by age, by whether people are wealthy or poor. We've got 4 wealth categories. We can look at a CHSP perspective, a home care perspective. We could probably do a vet perspective, the veterans. And then after 3 or 4 years of doing the home care study, one of our subscribers said, this is great consumer insights. It's helping us with our marketing, our strategy, our innovation. Could you do a similar study in residential aged care? So we did. And we've now got 3 annual studies. So in the beginning of the year, we do a big home care study. Middle of the year, we do a retirement living study, which I presented at Aging Australia just recently. And at the end of the year, we've just presented our residential aged care survey. So these are big data perspectives from the consumer side of things. So Stuart Brown gathers provider data in terms of costs, profitability, etc. I've got the consumer perspective to help organisations have the data to make those big decisions on, operations, efficiency, improvement, communications, marcoms, media choice. Where should you put that bucket of money to raise your brand profile, etc.? So that's massive. And along the way, we've also developed 3 data products. We've got a market share portal for home care and CHSP. We've got a bed pricing portal, so you can click on a region and see what your price is versus all your competitors. And we've got a home care pricing portal, which we're working to upgrade because there used to be 5 home care cost categories. And with supportive home, there's now 8 super categories. And under that, there's multiple individual categories. So within clinical, there might be acupuncture and chiropractic and et cetera, et cetera. So we're working out how we can present that in an efficient way. So Rob's in the engine room building that as we speak. So it's been a fun ride, and we've had 97 organisations subscribe to at least one product, usually multiple products, with home care being the biggest seller. It's a lot of fun gathering, curating, and presenting the data.
I love it. I mean, my career started in data and IBM back in Chicago, and one of I guess the story that locked me in was when I was working with SPSS, their analytic division, and watched effectively the Moneyball story play out, and going, my God, we almost beat the Yankees with insights, with predictions, with effectively just looking for things that others do not see to have a competitive advantage. And it stuck with me for the rest of my life and career. So Sirhan.
On the Freakonomics podcast, which was fascinating.
It was really interesting because Michael Lewis, he covered that. He's a famous author, and he wrote the story, the book Moneyball. But he's also written other ones like Liar's Poker, and so he's an ex. I don't think he's an economist. He's a Wall Street prolific investor, but also just a really sharp mind, and saw Billy Bean and this general manager who just had a different way of thinking. And I think it's that type of thinking that's so important to both our industry and what we bring to a lot of the businesses and other entities that rely on these insights to not only just get a competitive advantage, but even just operate sustainably. See risks or use information in ways that I think a lot of people, now that I've reflect on this as having many years of management consulting, not every business, I guess, thinks about what they have and how that data can really help drive better outcomes, better operations. And I applaud you for taking that big step. But maybe you could share a little bit about the Catalyst Group as well.
Yes, please. We'd love to hear your origin story, Kevin.
Yeah.
Where did it all begin? And was this a dream in the heart of a young boy or a teenager, or how early in the journey did it start to come to be?
I can tell you, it was in 1980, and I was doing work experience in year 10 for Reckitt and Coleman. And that was back in the day when work experience really was very meaningful. And they took a few of us for work experience, and they took us around the factory. They sent us on the road with a rep, and one day they sent us to the marketing department where there was an insights individual. And the insights dude said, "I know what's in your cupboard." I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, you've got this and this and this and this in your cupboard." And he was exactly right. And I could not believe that he could predict that. And I said, how do you do that? He said, "Well, we do big surveys to figure out what people are buying, what the most popular products are across, and, you go to a nice school, so your mum will probably be buying slightly better brands." And he predicted really well. So that was the first spark that lit the idea of insights in my head. Did a marketing degree, had a job with a professor at the university, which was also research related, and went to London with the business that he subsequently created. So I actually started an office in London when I was in my 20s, which was a lot of fun.
Cool gig.
Then, it was super cool. And then when I came back to Australia, I joined a very traditional market research company, Yan Campbell Hall Wheeler. So that, sounds like a law firm, but these are four of the best researchers in Australia.
Right.
And stayed with them for quite a while until I started my own company, Catalyst Research, in 1997 or whatever it was. So it's been a long and fun journey, and I've loved the diversity working in my favourite category of all is explosives. Doing research in the explosives market. More interesting than insurance. More interesting than technology. Motorola, Telstra. Did work for IBM in Europe. Retail, the arts is a pretty cool sector. Charities is a cool sector, very competitive.
Yeah.
But now I specialize in the continuum of care.
You've got to watch them.
Oh, look, it's important, but how do you elevate your brand and your proposition, like Glenn McGrath did with the McGrath Foundation? He owned Pink. He owned Pink. He put pink nipples on the top of water bottles. He had a partnership with with Cricket Australia, so that the third day of the Sydney Test is Jane McGrath Day, and so that's probably been one of the best stories in charitable marketing. So I'm not necessarily saying his charity is any better than the Smith family or World Vision, but the marketing behind that brand is absolutely sensational in such a competitive environment. And hopefully they're growing the pie of charitable giving and not just taking money away from Smith Family World Vision. Yeah, so I now specialise in continuum of care, home care, retirement living, residential aged care, with those 3 surveys and the data products, and having a lot of fun along the way.
What I'm hearing there, Kevin, is you've got a passion for data to make an impact, that it's not just data for data's sake. So tell us more about that. Maybe some of the outcomes that you've seen where you've been able to harness the power of data to do something good.
Probably one of the best applications of our reports is to is in the strategic planning of the executive, and they've all got ideas on what consumer preferences and priorities are. But like economists, there'll be five opinions amongst 7 executives, and they can pull out my report and say, well, this is what the data tells us in terms of objective feedback from the marketplace. So some of those outcomes have led to rebranding in the home care space. So some organisations, their brand doesn't fit well with the category. And I'm not going to try and take anything away from Australian Unity, but imagine trying to build cut-through if you're Australian Unity and you're selling health insurance, you're selling financial services and RAC and Resi, RL and home care, etc. So there's some organisations that have used our report to reshape their branding to make a better connection between the brand name and the category of home care. So that's sort of an example of an outcome.
Absolutely. Well, I've got some also data, and I think we're going to have a data-rich discussion today, because I know some of the team members that are coming on shortly, they'll be looking at even beyond Resi, which a lot of talk about bed blockages out there across the sector. But I thought I would share a little bit of just something where data is also key to a lot of our focus as well, but I think it's more about what's happening around the market with regards to residential aged care. And let's try to check and see if that's showing for you, Owen. Do you see on the screen anything?
Not as yet, but while you're doing that, Rob, I hear it on Good Report. We've got Marie Alford, Hammond Care.
Yes,
who
we
was
did.
fantastic as the dementia disruptor. And continuing to be, and Paul Sadler, long-term time friend of the show, and we haven't had Paul here for a while, and he's doing some great work, obviously, with Rolf and Inbox. No doubt you might have connected with Paul or Marie in your travels, Kevin.
Certainly, Paul. He and I are fellow cricket tragics.
He was
one of my he was one of my early clients. With Presbyterian Aged Care. He was the CEO of Presbyterian Aged Care, and he was one of the early buyers for my home care report. He's now also chairman of Meals on Wheels, and he and I actually met this morning. So it's
in real life. Wow.
No, online. I'm in Albany, Western Australia. It's a long walk to where Paul is. We met online. Kevin? I did swim 2 kilometres this morning, so there's a bit of a commitment there. I was chatting with Paul in his capacity as chairman of Meals on Wheels on how we might work together on my next home care study. So that's
stay tuned.
Yeah, I've got a lot of respect for Paul, such an experienced man. He was long time leader in the industry, heading up AXA. I think it was AXA. And remains a trusted advisor for many people via his Invox partnership and his own personal consultancy.
Yeah. We're raising the roof for Paul and Marie, and we're going to see them shortly. Rob, you have got your data on the screen now. I no doubt you want to have a bit of a data fest where you and Kevin can, expound some insights here.
Absolutely. Well, I think I didn't do that well in economics, but supply and demand is definitely an aspect of it. But I thought, Kevin, let's just talk about this. This is effectively where most of the challenge is coming from. What are you seeing, I guess, within these individual markets of retirement, home care, now the new supported home, and residential? And I know Paul will be speaking a little bit more about some of the knock-on effect to the acute sector too. But to me, it all is stemming from really a demand issue and accommodation issue. And I just wanted to get some feedback of what you're seeing, what's innovation, but also other aspects of where this is going, and also share even what I know the department is doing a pricing review on accommodation, and they're really looking at why and how can we get providers to build more and drive more accommodation assets for this growing population forecast we have in front of us.
Yeah, well, this is not my sweet spot. I can certainly talk to it, but my sweet spot is what consumers think. But we've known that the grey tsunami has been coming for 20 years. So we've got ourselves in a pickle. There have been some forward steps with the new Aged Care Act, given that there's going to be some RAD retention. There's the ability for residential aged care homes to charge for higher everyday living options. So there is a slightly better monetary equation, but there's still some significant challenges, such that if I go to if Linda Mellors goes to Westpac Bank and says, I want a bucket of money to build a new home, the Westpac Bank might say, well, could you build a retirement living place instead, because there's a much better ROI there. There's not those liquidity requirements. There's not the handbrake. So I really regret that, A, it's taken governments of all stripes so long to recognise this problem, and B, there is still a handbrake on the industry, such that Westpac is saying to Linda at Regis, hey, why don't we give you money for a new RL site instead, because the profitability is going to be much better than the RAC site, which is, not as attractive to us to lend you money. So we're not seeing the beds made available, and we're going to be further and further away from targets, what's needed as every year rolls on, as we're seeing now with 3,000 older Australians stuck in hospitals. And I actually like the fact that's going to embarrass people. I really hope that creates some political pain at a state and government level. And there was some minister this morning saying he's disgusted, etc. Well, mate, we've known this has been coming for some time. So do get your knickers in a twist and see if you can make something happen.
Well,
I love that.
Fair say, and thanks for not holding back, Kevin. I mean, 20 years is a fair while to be able to do some proactive planning and take a sentiment amongst the market on what the real needs of society and ageing Australians are. So it is a case of not doing enough soon enough, and now we've got a big problem on our hands. So maybe what I do love about today is we're going to give the consumers a voice. That has always been our passion from the moment we started all things aged care, that we build a community of purpose where people's voices are heard. As you know, we've got the open mic coming up at the half-hour mark, which is not far away, 9 minutes, and we've got some people probably frothing to share some of their thoughts and passions, which we love. We've got long-term friend of the show, Libby, saying it could be a data off between you and Rob, because you've got the provider and you've got the consumer. But we really want to give a mic to the consumer. So if you were to not hold back and just talk about the consumer sentiment and the big issues that are keeping them awake at night, please.
So this to me?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what your data is telling you, what your consumers are telling you in terms of the burning hot sort of issues that we need to give a voice to.
Yeah, there's a major challenge. I don't know if I could share a screen, but I'll tell you.
You could.
So yeah, I've got a slide here somewhere that might be relevant to show. Yeah, there it is. Okay, I've got my slide. How can I share on this thing?
So just, and then just have to be.
I'll present. Am I going to hit present or what?
Select present. Yep.
Present. Share screen.
I love it when technology comes together from afar.
Yeah.
Look at this.
Okay.
For those playing at home, it's that easy. Present.
All right.
Okay.
And then
Can
There you
you
go.
see?
doesn't match. There we go.
We are
Right.
live.
Yes,
So
yes, we can.
I've been
Thank you, Kevin.
I've been tracking consumer sentiment overall since 2022, and this is Australia. So in 2022, when asked how you'd rate the overall quality of care and support provided in residential aged care in Australia, if you don't have a personal connection, give us your impressions of the industry. In 2022, half of Australia gave the industry a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. They gave a negative score out of 10. That has
Wow.
progressively gone down, but it's still 40% of Australia giving the industry a negative score. A similar number give the industry only a 6 or 7 out of 10, and we're gradually pulling up such that we've now got over 1 in 5 giving a positive score, 8, 9, or 10 out of 10. So that's a good thing, but it's still only 1 in 5 Australians think aged care is any good, which is a parlous state of affairs. However, if you
So we're
ask
talking about
me,
20% of the population basically aren't confident about the future or the current, model.
However, if you ask me, a family member of someone in residential aged care at the moment, 3/4 of us think that aged care is 8, 9, or 10 out of 10. The site where Dad is, which is Adventist Care in Wahroonga, Sydney. So
Let's
that's
give them
been,
a shout out. Adventist Care Wahroonga, you're doing a great job. We'll raise the roof for you.
Brian
So-
and the team there.
Is there any Kevin, and not to disrupt your flow, but please give a shout out to the good people that are looking after your dad. That's the personal side of what we do.
yeah, I'll get back to that. But in the meantime, look at that mismatch between the 1 in 5 of Australians who think aged care is any good versus the 3/4 of me, those who are approximate to the care, have got a personal connection. And now I will segue to the wonderful care, the happy faces, the fact that people are putting up with my mum, who is a handful. My dad's gone to the dementia ward. They're very kind. They did a lovely Christmas celebration yesterday. My sister went. They had photographs, they had a nice menu, they had nice music. So I'm really distressed that there's so much fear in the Australian community about aged care. I'm not saying those fears are all wrong, but I do regret that this story about 3/4 of us being not just satisfied, but enthusiastic, 8, 9, or 10 out of 10. That's enthusiasm for dads, for Adventist Care, and all those other cases. So
Providers,
this story is not getting told enough. The good news stories.
Definitely
It's not sexy for the media, and I do love the way that Anthony is trying to bring sexy back to aged care.
Back to it. Yes, absolutely.
Well, Kevin, how do we solve for this? You had an article in October back in when our partners at the Australian Aging Agenda, and we need to solve for this image dilemma we have, and it's really been added to by negative sentiment and media, and it also, to me, it started around 2017 with the Four Corners and a lot of the investigation and journalism that led to the Royal Commission, which is a great finding, but we now need to, like you said, bring sexy back. So how do we solve for that? Or how do you see us solving that?
We need to come full circle because there's a massive mismatch, like you were saying.
Yeah, look, a recommendation in my recent report, and it's a 80-page report, so I can't talk about all of it, but one of the recommendations was that organisations should have a formal process to, it might be monthly, it might be quarterly, to gather good news stories.
Yeah, great.
So that they can share that amongst all their stakeholders and possibly push some PR to community press, etc.
Yes.
And
yes.
Ideally,
we're on board with that, Kevin.
Ideally, that would then they'd take their top 3 stories for the quarter and push that to Aging Australia, who have a PR capacity. They've got a very good PR manager whose name doesn't come to mind immediately. But imagine having the best of the best stories from around Australia to build into an evolving narrative to counter the old fears around the Royal Commission, COVID, staff shortages, that they can tell personal stories. I'm not sure how that's going to end up getting publicity, but there's a role
We need
for
more of that.
there's a role for individual providers, and there's a role for Aging Australia to roll up those stories into themes and push that out there, because 3/4 of us are not just satisfied, we are enthusiastic about the care that mum and dad are getting.
Absolutely. What? And we've got a couple of questions from Marie, so maybe it's a good time to start bringing our backstage on. Marie, if you're going to add you to the stage, and maybe you can ask Kevin your question specifically about this image problem that we have. Well, welcome, Marie.
Great to see you, Marie.
Happy Friday again.
Yes.
And you're just on mute, so I think I may have. I'll unmute you. There you go.
There we go. Thanks for popping me up, boys. Lovely to see you, Kevin, and love your work on the image issue in residential aged care in particular. After I was on last week, I took a long call from Gwenda Darling, who lives with dementia. She left a long voicemail for me. We love Gwenda. Raise the roof for Gwenda.
Yeah, raise the roof for Gwenda.
Yeah. She left me a big challenge on my voicemail about the fact that people are afraid of aged care, that they're looking at it from the outside, and your data really, really reflects that. And so it's just going through my head that star ratings has come into play, and God love a 5-star rating. You know, it's how we book trips on TripAdvisor and things like that. But do you think star ratings, because I have my own views here, do you think star ratings has helped or hindered that fear or appeal of aged care? What are your thoughts, Kevin?
Well, I've got more than thoughts. I've got data.
Yes, please.
So I'm a terrible one, or a good one, for grabbing the microphone at Aging Australia conferences, and occasionally I will drop a stat in, and I can tell you that as of last year, 1 in 4 people were actually using star ratings in their assessment of an aged care facility. The awareness of star ratings is going up. We know that the average number of stars is going up. So I think in general, it's a positive that the consumer can see there's a structure in place. The consumer can see there's the capacity to compare different providers, but it's still not, it's not widespread. It's not being used by the majority of shoppers. So it's a journey. I think it's a positive journey, but it's not a complete journey as yet for the industry.
Kevin, is there an alternative in your view? You're looking at the data, you're looking at the sentiment. What could be an alternative?
Yeah, I'm not sure if there's going to be a better alternative anytime soon. So a lot of organisations do their own surveys. Some organisations use my survey data, and I can give them net promoter scores or recommend scores. But there's cynicism from the consumers around, you know, ACME aged care, measuring ACME aged care, and then pushing that data out there. So I think for the government to be seen as somewhat independent, I think it's a positive thing, but there are a whole bunch of other criteria that consumers will look to as they assess aged care. You know, they'll look at location, they'll look at cost. You know, is it a nice building? Is it a nice room, etc. And increasingly, it'll be availability, because you know, more and more will be the case that you'll go where there's a spot available, as opposed to I can choose between these 3 or 4 options.
Exactly right. I mean, it is a proxy, but it's something that I feel at the moment is being utilized more by some of the regulatory aspects of our industry than the consumer side. And I guess that's not really the ultimate intent of that data set, but it is a purpose that we have to acknowledge, because it does highlight also good and bad in a new format. And the bad certainly, I think, is getting most of the focus on the star ratings related to our care time, direct care time, and especially from next quarter when there's penalties, and now also, the stick is getting yielded. So, yeah, we still got a ways to go, but it's policy hitting the road, you know?
Yeah, I think it is a positive journey in general from the consumer perspective, because information that wasn't there before is there now. There are positives to the information in terms of people being able to see underneath the star rating. You can see various categories of, you know, the care minutes, the satisfaction ratings from the government survey, etc. So in general, that's good. What the providers think about the practicality of care minutes and whether that's a good policy, that's another matter entirely. But from the consumer perspective, I do see it as a positive development.
That's great feedback. Well, the other aspect we want to talk about is we're going to bring also Paul Sadler on, and I know we have had a lot of discussion. There's been a lot of articles and on the nightly news. I feel this is being talked about regularly, but we do have a growing and a continued problem with bed blockages, and even touching friends and family who are having procedures being delayed or deferred because of some of the knock-on effect this is having. But Paul, come to the stage and join us as we continue to explore this interesting.
Great to see you.
Hi guys, how are you all going?
We are well.
Better to see you, our friend.
We are well. How's everything in your neck of the woods, Paul? Tell us a little bit about what's been the latest.
Well, you know, what's hot at the moment. Anything aged care is hot. I was just talking.
Absolutely, we're bringing sexy back.
Yeah, well, only up to a point, I have to say. I was really cross from the News Corp, the journo who is interested in the sector, talking about the open letter to Minister Sam Ray that Invox published yesterday, and lots of concerns about elements of the new support at home program, how it's working in practice, how the assessment system is potentially misallocating people, and then telling the assessors, well, you can't override what the algorithm tells you. And we've also obviously seen the debate between the states and the Commonwealth over hospital funding. The 3,050, I think it was, people stuck in Australian hospitals who need residential care. And the slide you put up earlier, you know, is just indicative of that, Rob, isn't it? That, you know,
it is.
The demand is going to significantly exceed supply in coming years. And you know, there's not much prospect of anything to change that dramatically in the short term.
It's
Paul,
a lot of innovation.
Please don't hold back on your open letter. This is your forum to engage and get some sentiment from our base. So we really want to hear what you and your inbox community had to say.
Yeah, well, we gathered together basically 6 weeks of information that the sector was telling us through the Quanda page, the question and answer page that we'd set up on Invox. And it's been a very useful way to gauge the feedback from the sector. So we've had all sorts of questions, case studies, confusion about elements of the reforms, how, grandfathered versus transitioned care participant contributions are going to apply, just the impact that the support at home changes are having on the sector is very widespread. And in the open letter, what we did basically was collate the feedback from providers in the first 6 weeks. What have been the difficult areas? What are the alarm signs, such as the independent assessment algorithm, that are calling out potential disasters down the track if we don't get it right. Just on that one, the feedback, not only via inbox but via LinkedIn posts and others, has been that there are people who are being assessed as having no aged care needs who have substantial aged care needs on the face of it, diagnosis, dementia, depression, other things, where people are then being said, well, you're not assessed as having any outcome in terms of the classification.
Wow. So do you see that political jockeying happening? Is that what we're starting to see signs of, to keep some of the stats and the data a little bit?
There's no question that a lot of this is going to be driven by data. So in Senate estimates, we had in the last week the department defending this, saying, well, only 19 people have applied for a reconsideration of their assessment outcome, and yet we've had, tens of thousands of assessments completed since the 1st of November. To which, I say, well, that's all very well, but how easy is it to put in a reconsideration application? How quickly do you think that's actually going to happen anyway, given we are only 6 weeks into the new system? And it's a little disingenuous for the department to kind of say, based on that sort of information, there's not really much of an issue here. So yes, thanks, Kim, for your comments about the resourcing for providers point, that we again made that in the open letter. I think the good thing about forums such as this one, such as Invox, is that we are giving a voice to providers and to older people themselves. Because we've had plenty of people who say they've linked into Invox events as older people, and it's been the clearest explanation they've had of how the system's meant to work. So I don't think the government has covered itself in glory in some of the information that it's been putting out about the new system. It's been too glossy. It hasn't really been realistic at times. Very much the messaging from Sam Ray has been all about how good once in a generation reform, wonderful new Act, etc., elements of which I would agree with, but it doesn't remove the reality of thousands of people stuck in hospital, older people having to pay significantly more for their care services than they previously did, and experiencing blockages at the point of getting assessments and getting into care. And when you get into care, you've got the added, is it a benefit of receiving an interim level of funding. 93% of the packages released since the 1st of November have been funded at an interim level, which is basically 60% of your classification level funding. And the department's saying that people are going to wait an average of 10 weeks, but up to 17 weeks to actually get access to the 100% of the funding.
Well, you make a great point that ongoing and structured engagement is required, right? So do you feel that engagement is there yet? Or can we can always do better, but are you feeling that with this government?
Yeah, look, absolutely. It is incumbent on all of us as the provider sector to be explaining this as clearly as we can to the older people who wish to use the aged care system. So it's a responsibility that everybody has. The persons groups, COTA, OPAN, national seniors.
Good organisations.
They're good organisations, but they have a responsibility to be getting out there, giving accurate messaging about how the new system operates. Marie, for the sort of people that you're working with, particularly people with dementia, the difficulties navigating
absolutely,
even more acute they are for many other people, and this is not a simple system.
Mm-hmm. And I think Marie had a question as well. That Marie, just unmute you if you want to ask it of Paul, but just to go a little bit with the assessments.
Wrong in the last word, so I should pay attention when I'm typing this. Sorry, guys, but I'm also hearing a lot from people with dementia and their carers about some of the challenges and their assessments being incorrect. But I'm wondering, workforce is so vital, and how are the assessors coping going into these situations, knowing that people require more services, yet virtually having their hands tied from being able to provide them, and as you say, those reassessments not being as accessible as we had hoped they'd be. So how are the assessors doing?
Not very well would be my sense of it. I was talking with the CEO of one of the assessment agencies just yesterday, and he was saying that they really feel constrained by the nature of their contract with the government. It's a very prescriptive arrangement and set of rules that they have to follow. They really are government, virtually government employees by another name, and they're having to follow the very strict rules that have been imposed on them under that. So the assessors are feeling like their clinical judgment, the thing that they went into doing this for, the ability to assess people's needs, make clinical judgments, provide help to people to access aged care, they're feeling like that capacity is taken away from them by the new system.
I know they do have some pretty stringent and strict KPIs that are put on them as well to perform on all levels. So I could see how that does make a lot of sense on that front. I guess to Kevin.
I want to ask Kevin a question, because it was one that he and I debated earlier today in our meeting that Kevin referenced.
Oh, good.
A debate.
We love a healthy debate.
Yeah. And that was the question around the participant contribution levels and the impact of those. And we did talk at our earlier meeting about maybe when you do the supported home survey early next year, that might be some questions that you can insert around what's that done, what is it meaning for older people's consideration of aged care. Is that going to spring up a whole set of new bad stories to even further depress the view of the sector?
Look, that's going to be an absolutely key question for our February 2026 survey. It's much anticipated. And I do feel for the home care providers who have got, a workforce. They've got a flow of accepting inquiries, converting those inquiries, delivering care against the needs of older Australians. And there's the potential for that dynamic to alter fundamentally for pensioners having to pay 17.5% for everyday care up to 80%. I feel, less sorry for the richer people who are going to have to co-contribute a large amount. But I really feel for the providers, how they're going to, how that dynamic's going to change. I'm actually going to do a provider survey in early, probably February, March, and say to the providers, hey, how have your inquiries changed? How has your conversion changed? How's your average package size changed? How has churn changed? So just 4 quick questions. I'll probably work with Australian Ageing Agenda and get feedback from all the providers to get some quick and dirty data on how has supported home affected the sustainability of supported home providers who are already under the pump with profitability margin issues, operational issues, staffing issues. So I'll have some answers by end of March.
We look
and Kevin,
forward
I
to
guess
that,
just
Kevin.
on that.
Yeah. Oh, you've got something there, Rob. I was just wondering, is Kim in the backstage area? I mean, she is a provider that's contributing to this discussion from the keyboard, but is she there?
No, she's not, fortunately.
Right. So, Kim, we'd love to hear your thoughts on that if you're tuning in at the moment.
Oh, she just tuned in as well. Yeah, Kim.
Go.
Well, before Kim on, Kevin,
yes,
maybe you can just speak to what, because this is as recent as the other week. So is this shaping really what we're seeing as now consolidation in home care providers like Resi?
Yeah, look, we're seeing it. Did you pull up? Yeah, that's if you keep going down, and I can probably pull up a larger version of that chart. But what the chart says is who has been getting the most home care funding up to June 30, 2025. And Australian Unity merged with My Home Care is number 1. Trilogy is number 2 with a bullet with 70% compound annual growth rate over 3 years. So they're one of they are the biggest growth engine in the industry. And the other growth category are franchises that have above average growth rate. So people like Pearl, Right at Home, Just Better Care are 3 of the franchises with good growth. But that's about dollars in. What remains to be seen is whether profitability and sustainability are impacted by the support at home changes. So I think it's going to be a dire state of affairs for the smaller operators. This is going to end up being a volume play. So we've already seen some consolidation, and we did see one player in Victoria actually go out of business. Can't remember their names. But it's a tough gig, particularly for the home care providers that don't have a rack business with that chunk of rent money providing financial ballast and security. So, I hold fears for the sustainability of the industry with the advent of support at home. But, let's wait and see what the numbers show us in March, April.
Well, we have a guest joining who is at one of these organizations who can speak to support at home, and she's been navigating this from Townsville, but has also very much been carrying the torch and really providing a lot of great inputs as to what that policy looks like in her organization. But welcome, Kim, to the floor. Let me just take the data off the table.
Hello.
Kim. Welcome.
Hi, Kim.
Thank you. Been a few weeks. Yeah, I'm really interested in this conversation. Particularly, we've been looking at the numbers for November, So it's only a month in, but we're really having to think, oh, what are we going to do long-term sustainability? I think our revenue for November was down by about a quarter. So, which, you would expect to see with loss of package management funding. So, so we really are having to, we're doing a strategic planning session in January, February. So I think we're going to have to look at the real big drivers for the organisation in terms of customer service and more efficiencies and our staffing models and pushing services, all of that sort of thing. So our case managers don't have anywhere near the caseload that they need. So it is going to come down to volume. But what does that look like for clients? If you're pushing 70 odd clients per case manager or care partner, sorry, they're not going to be getting the level of service they've got at the moment. So there's lots of issues that we've been dealing with. I think one of the frustrations, because you've also been talking about client contributions, is at the Invox CHSP webinar, the lady from the department, I can't remember her name, Julia, I think it was.
Julia Atkinson.
Yeah, she threw out a little comment saying, the full pensioner contributions were modest contributions. And I thought that's really easy to say when you're on a decent department salary. You're not delivering services if you think those contributions for daily or, multiple times a week services are modest on a pension. So, the whole structure at the moment is about managing client risk. And it just seems the whole new program has done nothing but increase risk to clients. And the department's sitting back saying, well, let's wait and see what happens, and then we'll make some adjustments. So that's like us saying, let's see if the client falls over, and if they do, we'll move that mat out of the way. Do you know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, that's putting it in really sort of simple terms, but
it's true.
Feels
And
Marie's got a great question there.
Yeah.
Marie, do you want to jump in with that? I think that's a really good question.
Yeah, I just, the issues that you're talking about, Kim, and, having showering, as something that's kind of optional for people, which will lead to clinical care. So it's fascinating to me how that sits in there. But, I sense we'll be moving into this decision-making of our dollars, and you could get a live-in sort of carer who could help you, 6 days a week, free food and free rent, but there'll be no regulation. So, I'm interested in the group's thoughts on, do we think this is going to push unregulated care up, and the consequences of that for good providers who've been providing good care for a long time?
Yeah. Look, I don't know. And when we move to the multi-provider model, whenever that is in 27 or whatever, that will change the dynamics again of the services that are being provided. And I think that's the government's intention as well. But certainly at the moment, we're looking at how do we structure a fee for service, so a private model for those self-funded people. How do we provide those services a little bit cheaper for them, and perhaps capture that market of people who are rejecting aged care or funded care? So, yeah.
Well,
and I talked before about Asian support and how I think that's where the industry needs to go. We need to stop calling it aged care and look at how we can support people to age well. And I think that's the model that we're going to move to, and the basic levels of support will be done by unregulated people. Sadly, they're the people, those basic level services, that's where, the oversight of deterioration and everything starts with your domestic assistance, with, that weekly contact or fortnightly contact. So.
Yeah, I can tell you from a consumer study that richer people are more likely to tend towards their own gardeners and cleaners. But what happens on the clinical side of things remains to be seen.
Yep.
Well,
Absolutely.
there's
So
some.
look, there's a lot of good things going on, so it's not all bad. There is good things. We've had a lot of new inquiries for supported home services too, so they are coming through.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic, Kim. Well, we hope, we hope as you navigate that, and your strategic planning day is going to be met with some great innovation, some great insights. Certainly, you've got some great access to some data, some new studies coming. So we'll, keep you in the loop there with Kevin, and keep doing what you do, Kim.
Thank you. Nice to see you all again.
Likewise, and have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Well, we had a lot of topics discussed today. I think today we felt a little bit, I want to say, oops. Sorry, I just want to mute someone. But I think with all of that underway, I think there's still a lot of work to be done. And I think what we can continue to do is keep having conversations about it, and stay engaged and keep engaging with the ministers, engaging with the media. So Paul, applaud you with the work you're doing in Inbox. We have to keep the stories moving and alive, and that's what we tell even when I lost my father-in-law. The advice was keep telling his stories. That's how we keep it alive around you. So keep doing all of that, and really love the work each one of you are undertaking individually. And we'd love to continue to have you back and cover these areas, because this is really really at the precipice of reform changes, and we need to not let things go too long when we know it's not right, and this is where it starts. So we certainly appreciate your positions on this.
Yeah, thank you,
no worries,
everyone.
And thank you for your input.
We're really excited to have you contributing going forward. I mean, that whole call out around good stories, no doubt organisationally, Marie, you could move on something like that, and Paul with your Inbox community, and having Kim and her peers putting out those the good stories amidst all of the challenges, to keep the sentiment and the momentum and the just for people who are feeling a bit overwhelmed, the power of a good story amidst all of the challenges.
Yeah.
Means a lot.
Well, thank you all for your time today, and until next time.
Thank you, everyone.
We
and have
salute
a great
you.
Christmas and
If we
holiday
don't
break.
hear from you for
And Rob, what do we always say?
lead us home.
All for one and one for all. Things
Things age care.
Let's
Take
make
care.
it better together. Take
Cheers.
care, everyone.
Bye-bye.